Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as he stepped out of the maintenance bay. Another day fixing broken equipment on the frontier mining station of Kepler 442b was coming to an end. The red dwarf star cast strange shadows through the reinforced windows, painting everything in shades of orange and crimson. He had been the chief technician on this remote outpost for 3 years now. Most people couldn't handle the isolation, but Marcus found peace in the endless technical challenges. Every day brought new problems to solve, new ways to keep the aging equipment running just a little bit longer. The mining station sat on the edge of what the colonists called the Whispering Valley. Strange rock formations created haunting sounds when the wind blew through them, but Marcus had grown to love the eerie music. It reminded him that even in the vastness of space, there was still beauty to be found. As he walked toward his quarters, Marcus noticed something unusual. A trail of disturbed sand led from the valley toward the old equipment storage depot. The tracks were enormous, far larger than any known wildlife on this planet. Most concerning of all, there appeared to be drag marks, as if something wounded had been seeking shelter. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and a portable light. His curiosity had always been stronger than his caution, a trait that had served him well as a technician, but worried his mother back on Earth. The trail was easy to follow in the settling evening light. The storage depot had been abandoned for months. Budget cuts meant they could only maintain essential facilities, and this building had been deemed non-critical. But as Marcus approached, he heard something that made him freeze in his tracks. A low, rumbling sound came from inside. It wasn't mechanical. He knew every piece of equipment on the station. This was something alive, something in pain. Marcus slowly pushed open the heavy door. His light cut through the darkness, revealing stacks of unused mining equipment and spare parts. The rumbling grew louder, coming from the far corner of the building. What he saw there defied everything he thought he knew about this planet. A dragon lay curled among the old machinery. Not a creature that looked like the mythical dragons from Earth's legends. This was exactly what every human child imagined when they heard dragon stories. Scales that shimmered between deep blue and silver covered its massive body. Wings that could probably span the width of the depot were folded tightly against its sides. It was magnificent and impossible. But something was terribly wrong. The dragon's eyes were clouded white, and strange burns covered its face around the eye area. It lifted its great head when Marcus's light hit it, turning toward the sound of his breathing. The creature was blind. Marcus should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at him to back away slowly and report this to station command. Instead, he found himself stepping closer. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a question. Its head tilted in a way that seemed curious rather than threatening. Marcus had always been good with animals, and something about this creature's posture reminded him of an injured cat he'd once helped as a child. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, keeping his voice calm. "You're hurt, aren't you?" The dragon's ears, delicate, pointed things that seemed too small for its massive head, perked up at the sound. It made another soft noise, almost like a purr mixed with distant thunder. Marcus slowly approached, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. As he got closer, he could see the extent of the damage. The dragon's eyes weren't just clouded. They had been burned by something. Energy burns, if he had to guess. The scarring around the eyes suggested this wasn't a recent injury. "What happened to you?" Marcus whispered. To his amazement, the dragon seemed to understand. It lifted one massive claw and touched the side of its head, then made a sound that somehow conveyed sadness and loss. Marcus spent the next hour just sitting with the creature, talking softly and letting it get used to his presence. The dragon was clearly intelligent. It responded to his voice, seemed to understand his tone, and even appeared to be listening when he explained that he was a technician who might be able to help. When Marcus finally left that night, He had a wild idea forming in his mind. The next morning, Marcus called in sick to his regular duties. Instead, he spent the day in his private workshop, surrounded by technical manuals and spare parts. The idea that had started as a whisper was becoming a roar. If the dragon's eyes were damaged by energy weapons, then the problem was essentially the same as any other sensory equipment failure. The eyes were biological sensors that converted light into neural signals. If those sensors were damaged, maybe they could be replaced or augmented. Marcus had spent years working with the mining station's sensor arrays. He understood how to capture electromagnetic radiation, process it, and convert it into usable data. The challenge was interfacing with biological systems instead of computer networks. He started with the medical scanner from the station's clinic. The device could map neural pathways and had limited ability to stimulate nerve endings. If he could modify it to interface with the dragon's optic nerves. The work consumed him completely. Marcus barely ate or slept as he disassembled, modified, and rebuilt components. He combined the medical scanner with parts from a mining probe's visual sensors, added processing units from a broken navigation computer, and somehow made it all work together. The result looked like something between a pair of goggles and a complex piece of surgical equipment. Thin filaments would need to make contact with the dragon's temples, while the main visual processors would sit just above where the creature's eyes should be. It wasn't pretty, but Marcus thought it might actually work. 3 days after finding the dragon, Marcus returned to the storage depot with his creation. The dragon seemed to have been waiting for him. It lifted its head immediately when he entered and made that questioning sound again. "I made something for you," Marcus said, sitting down beside the massive creature. "I think it might help you see again." The dragon examined the device with its other senses, sniffing delicately and even touching it gently with the tip of its tongue. Marcus was amazed at how careful the creature was, given that its claws were longer than his fingers. "I need to place this on your head," Marcus explained, showing the dragon how the device would fit. It might feel strange at first. To his continued amazement, the dragon lowered its great head and held perfectly still while Marcus positioned the visor. The neural interface filaments found their targets easily. The dragon's nervous system seemed compatible with his modifications in ways that should have been impossible. Marcus activated the device. The dragon's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. It reared back, making a sound like controlled thunder. But this wasn't pain or fear. It was joy. Pure, overwhelming joy. The creature turned its head back and forth, taking in everything around it. It looked at the old machinery, at the walls of the depot, and finally, directly at Marcus. When their eyes met, the dragons now glowing softly through the visor's interface, Marcus felt something he couldn't explain. Intelligence looked back at him. Ancient, vast intelligence that had been trapped in darkness and was now free. The dragon made a sound that was clearly meant to be words, though Marcus couldn't understand them. But the meaning was clear anyway. Gratitude. Over the next few hours, Marcus watched as the dragon relearned how to see. The creature was fascinated by everything, examining objects it had probably only known by touch and smell for years. It was particularly interested in Marcus's technical equipment, studying his tools with the intensity of a fellow engineer. That's when Marcus realized something that should have been obvious from the beginning. This wasn't just an animal. The dragon was a person, a being with technology, culture, and intelligence that might exceed humanity's own. "You're not from this planet," Marcus said. "You're here the same way I am. You're a visitor." The dragon nodded, an unmistakably deliberate gesture. "What happened to you? How did you get hurt?" The dragon looked toward the sky through a gap in the depot wall. It made a series of sounds that Marcus was beginning to recognize as attempts at communication. The meaning seemed to be, others, coming, danger. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. If this dragon was some kind of refugee, if it had been attacked and left blind on this remote planet, then whoever had done it might still be out there. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, Marcus was content to sit with his new friend and watch as it experienced sight for the first time in years. The dragon kept looking at him with what he could only interpret as amazement and gratitude. Marcus had always believed that the best technology was the kind that solved real problems for real people. He'd never imagined that definition of people might need to be quite so broad. As the alien stars wheeled overhead and the whispering valley sang its strange song, Marcus Chen, technician and accidental diplomat, sat with a dragon and marveled at the vast complexity of the universe. He had no way of knowing that his simple act of kindness had just changed the course of galactic history. But in 4 days, he would find out exactly how much one healing visor could accomplish. The dragon settled down for the night, but its glowing eyes remained fixed on the sky. It was watching for something, and Marcus suspected they would both find out what that something was very soon. The next morning brought an unexpected development. When Marcus arrived at the storage depot with breakfast, he'd raided the station's emergency rations for high-protein bars. He found the dragon standing upright, examining the mining equipment with newfound clarity. But more surprising than that was what the dragon had done overnight. Using its claws with surgical precision, it had etched symbols into a piece of metal sheeting. The symbols were clearly mathematical equations, but unlike any notation system Marcus had ever seen. The dragon noticed his arrival and gestured toward the makeshift writing surface. It tapped the equations with one claw, then pointed at the visor Marcus had built, then at itself. "You're trying to tell me something about the technology?" Marcus asked. The dragon nodded and began scratching new symbols. Marcus watched in fascination as the creature worked. The equations it was writing looked like advanced energy field theories, but with mathematical concepts that were decades ahead of human science. Then the dragon did something that made Marcus's heart skip. It drew a simple diagram of a human figure next to a dragon figure, then connected them with lines that clearly represented communication or partnership. "You want to work together," Marcus said. Another nod, followed by more rapid scratching. This time, the dragon drew what looked like star charts. It pointed to one star system, then to another, then made a gesture that seemed to indicate travel or movement. Marcus pulled out his tablet and accessed the mining station's astronomical database. "Can you show me where we are now?" The dragon studied the star charts on Marcus's screen with intense concentration. After several minutes, it pointed to their current system with remarkable accuracy. Then it gestured to the equations it had written and made a sound that somehow conveyed urgency. Over the next hour, through a combination of drawings, gestures, and Marcus's growing understanding of the dragon's vocal patterns, a remarkable story emerged. The dragon's name was something that sounded like Kelthara when spoken in human phonetics. Kelthara was not just any dragon. She was a member of the Draconic Technical Guild, an organization of engineer scholars whose technology was based on biological and energy field manipulation rather than the mechanical engineering humans used. She had been working on a deep space exploration mission when her ship had been attacked by raiders. The energy weapons they used were specifically designed to target draconic sensory organs, leaving victims alive but helpless. Kelthara had managed to escape to this remote planet, but her ship's emergency systems had failed. She had been stranded here for almost 2 years. 2 years? Marcus said, horrified. "You've been alone and blind for 2 years?" Kelthara made a sound that conveyed resignation mixed with determination. She drew another diagram showing herself working even while blind. Apparently trying to repair communication systems or call for help using only her other senses and memory. But Marcus's visor had changed everything. With her sight restored, Kelthara had been able to complete repairs to a hidden emergency beacon. Last night, while Marcus slept, She had sent a signal that would reach her people. "They're coming," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. Kalthera nodded solemnly, then drew a new diagram. 4 ships approaching their planet, arriving soon. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror. First contact with an alien civilization was the kind of event that changed everything, but he was just a technician on a mining station, not a diplomat or scientist. He wasn't prepared for this. Kalthera seemed to sense his distress. She placed one massive but gentle claw on his shoulder and made a sound that was unmistakably reassuring. Then she began drawing again. This time, the diagram showed Marcus and his visor prominently featured. Kalthera drew herself speaking to other dragons, pointing at Marcus, making gestures of respect and gratitude. "You're going to tell them what I did," Marcus realized. The response was emphatic agreement, followed by more drawing. Kalthera sketched out what appeared to be ceremonies, exchanges of knowledge, and symbols that clearly represented honor and alliance. Marcus spent the rest of the day helping Kalthera prepare for the arrival of her people. She guided him in setting up additional communication equipment and even taught him some basic draconic greetings. Her vocal patterns were complex, but Marcus discovered he had a talent for mimicry. As evening approached, Kalthera became increasingly attentive to the sky. She would pause in their work to scan the horizon, her enhanced vision picking up details Marcus couldn't even imagine. Then, as the alien sunset painted the sky in familiar oranges and reds, Kalthera made a sound Marcus had never heard before. It was joyful, relieved, and triumphant all at once. 4 points of light had appeared in the sky, growing rapidly larger. The ships that descended were nothing like human vessels. They moved with organic grace, their surfaces seeming to shift and flow rather than maintaining rigid geometries. As they approached, Marcus could see that they weren't built so much as grown, like massive metallic creatures that had been shaped by will and technology working in harmony. The lead ship landed in the Whispering Valley with surprising delicacy for something so enormous. Its surface continued to move even after landing, forming ramps and doorways where none had existed before. Kalthera stood tall beside Marcus, the visor's gentle glow making her eyes shine in the growing darkness. She spoke in her own language, her voice carrying across the valley with authority and dignity. The response came from the landed ship, other draconic voices calling back in what was clearly an organized greeting. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but the emotion was universal. A lost family member had been found. 3 dragons emerged from the lead ship. They were each unique in coloring and size, but all moved with the same grace and intelligence Marcus had come to associate with Kalthera. They approached slowly, their own eyes glowing with soft internal light. The reunion was beautiful and alien and deeply moving. The dragons touched snouts and made complex harmonizing sounds that filled the valley with music. Marcus stood to one side, trying to be respectful of what was obviously a profound moment. Then Kalthera turned to him and gestured him forward. She spoke rapidly and draconic, pointing at Marcus and at the visor she still wore. The other dragon's attention focused on him with an intensity that was overwhelming. The largest of the new arrivals stepped forward. When it spoke, Marcus was shocked to hear accented but clear English. "You are Marcus Chen, the technician who restored sight to our colleague." "Yes," Marcus managed, his voice cracking slightly. I wanted to help. She has told us of your kindness, of your skill, of how you took an impossible problem and made it possible." The dragon's voice carried tones Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep respect. "We are honored to meet you." Marcus looked at Kalthera, who was clearly pleased by her colleague's words. She spoke again in Draconic, and Marcus caught what sounded like technical terms mixed in with the flowing language. She explains that your solution required not just technical knowledge, but innovation and adaptation. You took technologies from different fields and combined them in ways we had not considered. The speaking dragon paused. This is significant. How so? We have been watching your species for some time, Marcus Chen. We know of human ingenuity and determination. But this, the dragon gestured toward Kelthara's visor. This represents something more. You saw a person in pain and found a way to help, even when that person was utterly unlike yourself. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. Anyone would have done the same thing. Would they? The dragon's tone suggested gentle disagreement. Our experience with most species suggests otherwise. Most beings help their own kind readily, but are cautious with others. You helped Kelthara before you even knew what she was. Kelthara spoke up, and though Marcus couldn't understand her words, her tone was clearly proud and affectionate. She says you treated her as a person from the moment you found her. You spoke to her with respect, included her in your thinking, and built your solution around her needs rather than your assumptions. The largest dragon moved closer to Marcus. My name is Vorthak, and I serve as a senior ambassador for the Draconic Technical Guild. Marcus Chen, we would like to make you an offer. Marcus waited, his heart racing. We propose a formal technical and cultural exchange between our peoples, beginning with you and Kelthara working together. Your mechanical engineering combined with our biological manipulation could advance both civilizations by centuries. But I'm just a mining station technician, Marcus protested. I'm not a diplomat or scientist. I just fix things. Yes, Vorthak said, his voice warm with approval. You fix things. Even impossible things. Even people who others might not recognize as people. The dragon paused, studying Marcus carefully. The greatest technological advances come not from those who know everything is impossible, but from those who see a problem and simply begin working to solve it. Kelthara stepped forward and began speaking rapidly, her claws gesturing at the visor and then at Marcus. The other dragons listened intently, occasionally asking questions in their flowing language. She proposes that this visor become the template for a new field of collaborative engineering, Vorthak translated. Biological mechanical interfaces that could help countless individuals across multiple species. She wants to work with you to develop this technology further. Marcus looked at Kelthara, whose glowing eyes met his with unmistakable hope and excitement. You want me to come with you? He asked her directly. She nodded, then spoke in carefully pronounced English. Partners. We build together. The sound of her voice speaking his language was somehow the most moving thing that had happened in this incredible day. Marcus realized that while he had been learning her communication methods, she had been learning his. The choice is yours, Marcus Chen, Vorthak said formally. But know that whatever you decide, you have earned our respect and gratitude. Your name will be honored among our people as the human who saw past difference to find common purpose. As Marcus stood in the Whispering Valley under alien stars, surrounded by dragons and technology he was only beginning to understand, he realized his life had just become infinitely more complicated and wonderful than he had ever imagined possible. Above them, the 3 remaining ships continued to circle patiently, waiting for his answer. Marcus stood in the alien evening, feeling the weight of a decision that would affect not just his life, but potentially the future of human civilization. Around him, 4 magnificent dragons waited patiently for his answer, their bioluminescent eyes creating pools of gentle light in the gathering darkness. I need to contact my station commander, he said finally. This isn't just my choice to make anymore. Vorthak tilted his massive head in understanding. Of course. We would be honored to speak with your leadership as well. Perhaps it would be beneficial for both our peoples if this contact were formalized properly. Marcus activated his communication device, his hands trembling slightly. Commander Sarah Okafor's face appeared on the small screen, her expression shifting from routine annoyance to complete shock as she took in the scene behind him. "Marcus, what in the hell are those dragons?" "Commander, I need you to sit down," Marcus said carefully. "I have something to report." The next hour was controlled chaos. Commander Okafor, to her credit, listened to Marcus's entire story without interrupting, though her expression grew increasingly incredulous. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So you're telling me that our maintenance technician has made first contact with an alien civilization by building medical equipment for a stranded refugee," she said finally. "That's accurate, yes, ma'am. And now they want to establish formal diplomatic relations and technological exchange programs?" "Also accurate." Commander Okafor rubbed her temples. "Marcus, you realize I'm going to have to wake up half the colonial government for this?" "I figured as much. Don't go anywhere. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'm calling Earth Command right now." The screen went dark, leaving Marcus alone with 4 dragons who had been listening to the entire conversation with polite attention. "Your commander seems cautious," Vorthak observed diplomatically. "She's responsible for the safety of 300 people," Marcus replied. "Caution is part of the job." Kalthara spoke in Draconic, and Vorthak translated. "She says that caution balanced with openness is a sign of good leadership. She appreciates your commander's position." While they waited for the inevitable cascade of official responses, Marcus found himself in the surreal position of giving dragons a tour of human mining technology. They were fascinated by everything, asking detailed questions about metallurgy, power systems, and manufacturing processes. But they were equally interested in sharing their own knowledge. Vorthak demonstrated how draconic ships could reshape themselves by manipulating biological metal alloys on a molecular level. Another dragon, who introduced herself as Thiroleth, showed Marcus how they could grow complex electronic components using guided crystallization techniques. "Your species approaches problems by building solutions from the outside in," Thiroleth explained as she grew a functioning sensor array from what looked like crystalline seeds. "You design, manufacture, and assemble. We grow, shape, and guide. Both methods have advantages." The most remarkable revelation came when Kalthara began explaining how the visor Marcus had built actually worked from her perspective. She could interface directly with the electronic components, feeling their function as an extension of her own biological processes. "This is unprecedented," Vorthak said seriously. "Our technologies have never been so directly compatible with another species' work. Usually there are biological barriers that require extensive adaptation." "Maybe that's because humans and dragons approach problems similarly," Marcus suggested. "We both see a challenge and start figuring out how to solve it." Kalthara made a sound that he was learning to recognize as laughter. She spoke rapidly to the others, who also began making the same sound. "She says that is exactly what she thought when she first met you," Vorthak translated. "You saw her problem and immediately began engineering a solution, just as any dragon would do." As the night progressed, Marcus began to understand that this encounter was even more significant than he'd realized. The dragons belonged to a loose confederation of species called the Technical Concordat, an alliance based on shared engineering principles and mutual assistance with technological challenges. "Most species we encounter are either too primitive to contribute meaningfully or too advanced to need our assistance," Thiroleth explained. "Humans appear to be at exactly the right level of development for true collaboration. Plus, you have something we value highly," Vorthak added. "What's that?" "Innovation through adversity. Your species has had to overcome tremendous challenges with limited resources. This forces creative thinking and adaptive problem-solving." The dragon gestured at Marcus's visor. You solved Kelthara's blindness using medical equipment, mining sensors, and navigation computers. No dragon would have thought to combine those particular technologies. Marcus felt a flush of pride, but also a growing sense of responsibility. This isn't just about me, though. Humans work best when we work together. If you really want to see human innovation, you need to meet our scientists and engineers and researchers. That, said Vorthak, is exactly what we hope to arrange. Dawn was breaking over the Whispering Valley when Marcus's communicator finally chimed again. Commander Okafor reappeared on the screen. But this time she was flanked by two other people Marcus didn't recognize. Marcus, I'm here with Dr. Elizabeth Santos from the Xenobiological Research Division and Ambassador Chen Wei from Earth Diplomatic Corps, she said formally. They've been briefed on the situation and would like to speak with our guests. The next several hours were a whirlwind of formal introductions, careful diplomatic language, and technological demonstrations. Dr. Santos was particularly fascinated by the medical implications of Marcus's visor, while Ambassador Chen focused on establishing proper protocols for interspecies contact. But the real breakthrough came when the dragons began discussing their broader galactic situation. The technical Concordat, it turned out, was facing a significant threat from the same raiders who had attacked Kelthara. These pirates specialize in targeting isolated technical outposts and research stations, Vorthak explained to the assembled humans. They steal technology and either sell it or use it to attack other targets. They've been growing bolder recently. And they specifically target your sensory organs? Dr. Santos asked. Among other species as well, Thiroleth confirmed. They've developed weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill, making their victims helpless but keeping them alive to extract information about defensive systems and valuable technologies. Ambassador Chen leaned forward. Are you saying that human space could be at risk from these raiders? Possibly. Your expansion into this region of space has attracted their attention. Several human outposts have reported strange sensor contacts in recent months. Marcus felt a chill. His simple act of kindness hadn't just led to first contact, it had potentially warned humanity about a serious threat. However, Vorthak continued, this is also an opportunity. The technical Concordat has been looking for allies in this region. A species capable of the kind of innovative thinking Marcus demonstrated would be invaluable in developing new defensive technologies. The formal negotiations continued for 3 days. Marcus found himself thrust into the middle of discussions that would reshape human understanding of the galaxy. His mining station became the site of the first official human-dragon diplomatic summit. Through it all, Kelthara remained at his side, serving as both technical advisor and cultural translator. Their partnership had become the model for human-dragon cooperation, and Marcus realized that his life would never be simple again. The final agreement was more comprehensive than anyone had initially imagined. Humans would establish a formal embassy with the technical Concordat. Joint research stations would be set up to develop new technologies combining human mechanical engineering with draconic biological manipulation. And Marcus himself would serve as the first human technical liaison, working directly with Kelthara to explore the possibilities of cross-species innovation. There's one more thing, Vorthak said as the formal ceremonies concluded. The Concordat wishes to honor Marcus Chen with the designation of Bridge Builder, one who connects different peoples through understanding and shared purpose. Marcus looked out across the Whispering Valley, where human and dragon ships now sat side by side. The strange rock formations still sang their haunting songs, but now they seemed to be celebrating rather than mourning. A month ago, I was just fixing broken equipment, he said to Kelthara. Now, I'm apparently a galactic diplomat. She made her laughing sound and spoke carefully in English. Still, fix broken things. Now, fix broken connections between peoples. That evening, As the dragon ships prepared for departure, Marcus packed his few belongings with mixed emotions. He was excited about the opportunities ahead, but sad to leave the quiet frontier life that had suited him so well. Commander Okafor found him in his workshop, carefully disassembling the last pieces of equipment he'd need for his new role. "Any regrets?" she asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "I'm going to be representing all of humanity to alien civilizations I don't understand, working with technologies I can barely comprehend, and trying not to accidentally start an interstellar incident." "That's not what I asked." Marcus smiled. "No regrets. This is the biggest technical challenge I've ever faced. How could I pass that up?" As his ship, a hybrid human-dragon vessel that Kael'thera had helped design, lifted off from Kepler 442b, Marcus looked down at the mining station that had been his home. The Whispering Valley stretched out below, its ancient songs carrying across the landscape. He thought about the chain of events that had brought him to this moment. A wounded dragon seeking shelter, a technician who saw a problem that needed solving, a simple visor built from spare parts and determination. Sometimes the most important discoveries came not from grand expeditions or massive research projects, but from one person seeing another in need and deciding to help. Marcus activated the ship's communication system and sent a message back to Earth, to be distributed to every human technical school and engineering program in known space. The universe is full of problems waiting to be solved and people waiting to be helped. The only requirement is the willingness to see past what makes us different and focus on what we might accomplish together. 6 months later, the first joint human-dragon research station came online, developing medical technologies that would help countless species across the galaxy. The raiders that had once terrorized isolated outposts found themselves facing defensive systems they couldn't understand or counter. And in a workshop that existed partly in normal space and partly in the flowing biological dimensions that dragons preferred, a human technician and a dragon engineer continued to build impossible things, one careful innovation at a time. Marcus had learned that the best technology wasn't just about solving problems, it was about building bridges between worlds that had never known they needed each other. The universe, it turned out, was full of friends he simply hadn't met yet.